Welcome to Green Corridors, Tune into Nature, the podcast where we explore the deep ties between people and the natural world. In today's episode, we'll dive into how the natural world is more than just a backdrop to our lives. It is an active, living force that has been guiding spiritual practices for centuries. Whether it's the rhythm of the seasons, the healing power of trees, or the quiet wisdom of a flowing river, nature has always been intertwined with our deepest spiritual truths. We are your hosts, Beki and Gillian, and today we're joined by Craig of Edible Leeds and Four Wild Seasons, and Lorraine of Haxby Methodist Church. Together we'll uncover the ways in which the earth, sky and sea inspire a sense of connection, purpose and sacredness in our everyday lives. So let's get started.
Hi, thank you both for coming. It's really great to have you.
It's good to be here.
Craig, should we start with you? Well, how did you, tell us a bit more about you.
Okay, so my name's Craig. I'm a wild food forager, tutor and wild food chef, philosopher, poet, lots of other things I'm sure you could throw in there. But I've been spending a lot of time out in nature since setting foot on the wild food pathway, really, which just kind of came along. Very much feel that it was very destinal, that there were lots of signs and messages and nudges and prompts from a force greater than myself, but that I'm obviously connected with. And eventually kind of pushed me into, kind of teaching about wild foods and deep diving and getting very immersive within sort of the realms and the folds of nature. So spending a lot of time in the various different seasons, picking out plants, picking out mushrooms, going to the coast, looking at seaweeds and kind of just being, immersed in the sounds, the rhythms, and kind of weave myself in and out of that, really. So it's kind of brought me to where I am, and it's been quite a wonderful journey. Continues to be a wonderful journey to this day.
So following your feelings, that sounds like following your...
Very much so, yeah. Intuition, intuition plays a large part in this. And again, I think sometimes just surrendering, allowing yourself just to be as opposed to kind of trying to be. That's something that I've learned along the way, and very much kind of adopt that into just my everyday life as well. I think we can get so stuck in the now, the here and now, busy mind, busy brain, carrying the weight of the world on our shoulders. And I often find, doctors and psychologists and various other healthcare professionals will kind of mention this, that, when you step foot out into the wild world, especially into a woodland, you're entering a completely different dimension or realm. I think given today's modern world, it's very, very different to concrete and cityscapes and beeping horns and revving engines and fumes and clutter and noise. It just seems to be that it just is. And, the trees give off phytochemicals and, they're all communicating with us. Maybe that's something we'll delve into later. That's something that came much later on in my journey, becoming aware and, kind of going through that whole mind thinking, you're just making it up in your head, aren't you? That plant didn't talk to you. But anyway, I'm going to stop that little bit there because that's for later on in the podcast.
Yeah, we can come back to that. I think surrendering is a really important thing, which might, Lorraine, is that something?
Absolutely. I think tuning into that more being rather than doing. We're also busy doing, aren't we? That we just need to just step back. And actually, the evidence is that we're so much more productive when we take time to rest, and particularly in nature as well. It's got so much research into that. And the community garden that I'm part of, it's part of the NHS and the social prescribing work. So, and they have particular green social prescribers as well. So they've caught onto this as well, so in a big way. So it's really important. So
because they say people heal better if they're in a hospital and they've got, say, like a tree just
absolutely.
outside the window, whereas if you're just in a very sterile, clean, bleachy smelling room, that you kind of don't feel the benefits from that.
Definitely. They have lots of little pockets of green spaces, I think, in hospitals, don't they, in places?
They do.
So it's lovely.
What about your journey, Lorraine?
So my journey, definitely echoes in, from what Craig was saying into my journey as well. So I would have said my first eco-awakening, if you like, is at school. And I'm going to show my age now. And that when I was at school, and it was talking about the ozone layer. And that was the big thing at the time. And climate change, that kind of thing, was just starting to become much more publicly aware. So that was when I first started being interested in it. But then I went on to do a degree in economics, actually, bizarrely, and went on to be an accountant in my former life, as you do. But then that interest was always there, and I just see the economics are just so fundamental to how the impact on how we live our lives today. And it just feeds through because it's a story we tell about ourselves. So that always fascinated me. And I just started to pick out the flaws in it, particularly from an environmental point of view. But I'm like, but if you just focus on profits and all the time, then what about the rivers? What about everything being polluted? You know, and so my journey kind of carried on there for a bit. And then family came along, got married. So I had 2 wonderful children. But then started working part-time. And then, you know, in my faith journey, again, that universe calling for me, that's God, a God calling. My minister had said, I think you should do children's work. So I'm a children and youth pastor, really. So, and for that, it was with them that I started to really work, and of course seeing it through their eyes as well, and how worried they are about it. But also, you know, as it started unfolding, my work with them started unfolding. It was, you could see, yes, them being worried about it, but also worried about so many things. There's so many pressures on young people now, and I really hate that they've got this fear of failure. They're worried about the world. They don't know opportunities. They're worried about so much, and I see it coming down from the way we live our lives and fast fashion and fast everything, isn't it? And that we need to just slow down and back to that slowing down mental health and resting and being. And so, yeah, and it's funny how, and particularly during lockdown, I found that deeper spiritual part of nature itself really just came to the fore. And I would say my gardening just helped me through lockdown. I would absolutely say that it just really connected. And it's where I connected with God as well. Yes, I go to church, and yes, I connect in other ways, but nature for me is really powerful. I think people connect with nature in that kind of spiritual sense. You were saying that connecting with something bigger than yourself. I think that resonates with so many people, whether they would call it God, whether they would call it universe, whether they would call it the Force, Star Wars, whatever. It's
It feels like you've it feels like you've both paid attention to yourselves. You've heard and listened, and does that make sense? I don't know.
It does, and again, it's been a steady process, and I look at my youth and growing up, and the amount of time that I spent sort of in my head to an extent. We're very, very heady, aren't we, as a culture with our education. We're saying education's a bad thing. It's actually a really good thing, depending on what you're educating people about. But also allowed to make your own education, to kind of come to conclusions based on your own discernments, your observations, your experiences. And I don't think, I also come from an education background, and I don't necessarily see that happening within educational settings. I know when I was working with the youngsters, we were doing outdoor projects, and the difference in the behaviour of those pupils when we took them outside. So we were working with the pupils that the schools were really struggling with. There were, behavioural issues and maybe trauma issues, and they really struggled to kind of work out and process their emotional data. So they'd be very reactionary, and the classroom setting wasn't for them. We took them out. And honestly, the miraculous change that took.
Like different people, aren't they? Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah. And often they'd come up to me and they'd go, well, what do you think, sir? And my thing was like, well, actually, what do you think?
Yeah.
That's the important thing. They'd be like, oh, well, I don't really know. And I'm like, well, I'll tell you what, we meet up again next week. Why do you have a think on it? Come to me, we'll have a chat about it. And they would, and they'd express whatever they express, and they'd go like, well, what do you think? And I'm like, I don't know, it doesn't really matter what I think, does it? I think it sounds spot on, does that? Well done, you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is it. It's about getting them to ask those deep, big questions and not be afraid of asking the big questions. I think so much now they're just fed the answers all the time, and actually encourage the creativity, encourage the connection to other things, and then encourage that critical thinking as well, because there's so much disinformation and everything out there now. It's like, how can they tackle all of this? And I think connection to other things, and so much emphasis is put on the on the really formal education, the academic side of it. And they find themselves often later, and what should that say about our education system, that they have to find what really suits them out of school instead of within school? Why can't that be in school? Absolutely. So much more connecting to what is important in life. And I think if they see, school as really relevant rather than, I'm never going to use this again, then I think they're probably going to be much more engaged. Whereas learning those big questions and to keep asking them and keep questioning and not be afraid of that, I think is brilliant. Yeah.
Again, it's it's very, very much, we look at labels and definitions, and it's actually really a case of one size does not fit all. Not everybody can fit in the same glove, and I think appreciating everything that everybody can bring to a table. So, some people are really good with their mind. Some people are really good with, I suppose, imagination and creative expression. Others are really good with, cooking. Others are really good with the caring aspect. Others are really good with the leadership. And again, focusing in and honing in on those skills and actually allowing those to come forth, but also just spreading that wide message as a wider cultural and social message that you are all worthy. You all bring something to the table. Nobody's more important. And again, that feeds back into nature. We can look at aspects of nature and we can put certain organisms, let's say fungus, for instance, on a pedestal. And it's great. We've got some great scientific research behind mushrooms, especially since the advent of sort of genetic and DNA analysis. There's new categorizations coming along that we didn't know years ago when we were just looking through a simple microscope.
It's amazing.
And yet at the same time, the larger, wider message that's out there, particularly from the indigenous cultures around the world. And again, we were indigenous and we are still indigenous and we can still be indigenous. We need to recognise our indigenous nature around us, was that everything is connected. Yeah. One part is no greater than the other, for a cliched metaphor or whatever. So no, I think it's just the same with us as humans, just recognising our part within nature as well. Yeah. And we have steadily through agriculture, through cultural changes, through especially the modern world, that we see so many taglines and buzzwords out there permeating with all the time, virtual, artificial. And it's like, well, what about the natural? Yeah. What about the organic? What about the origins of this? Where are we going with this one? And just very quickly to look at, I think Robert Macfarlane was really concerned about this. He's a great literary guy who's written some amazing books. And he collaborated on a book called The Lost Words, because they were really concerned about the words that were being excluded from childhood dictionaries. So like kingfisher, fox, and badger, but they were being replaced with download, lol. And it's like, wow, where are we going? Yeah. Foxes haven't disappeared. But again, I think we're spending more and more times indoors, which kind of brings it back around to the point of being in your head. Actually, maybe what we need to do is get out of our heads and step into our hearts. Yeah. And I very much feel that nature has the best for us. I can be around people and, people are people, take people on face value and through my meetings and whatever they are.
It's about that reconnection, isn't it? We're just so disconnected from the natural world. We're disconnected from each other. It's all about that hyper-individualism and consumerism, isn't it? So we need to reconnect to ourselves as well, and those things that we deeply know, and the recognition that we're all sacred and nature's sacred. And once you start there, you start seeing everybody else as sacred, and things need to be protected. And, and it's so, absolutely, that's it. But and it's the whole systems theory, isn't it? So thinking about the world rather than this hierarchical thing, which is a very traditional way of seeing it, isn't it? It's much more interrelated, systems theory, everything is connected. So we can't do things on our own because it will then affect everybody else as well, and just have so many knock-on effects on. And we see that not just in our natural systems, but in our social systems, in our cultural systems, in our economic systems. We see what's going on across the pond and all the effects that action across there is going to have over here. So everything is so connected. But if we start seeing everything as sacred, let's start there. As a really good starting point.
Absolutely.
And then build on that. It's going to lead to all sorts of ethical questions and things like that. But if we start there, that's a really good point to a good basis, a good foundation, I think, isn't it? Yeah.
Because nature doesn't, I suppose, taps into my comment that I forgot about, that, when I step out into nature, I could be around people and people could tell a lie to me, people could feed me some BS or some nonsense.
Yeah.
But when I go into nature, I don't find that. There's no preconceptions. It doesn't load me with any sort of preconceptions of being there. But what it does allow me to do, I think tapped into what you're just saying, is that it allows us to offload ourselves in a sense, sort of shed some of that heady weight that we're carrying around us and kind of dance through our thoughts, process our thoughts in a really quite beautiful, natural, mystical kind of way. I always feel much better even if I've been at the allotment, I've had my hand in the soil, just like
That's one of my
feel a world
favourite
away.
things to do, just dig my hands into the soil and feel it. I just feel so much better.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
There's some seeds sowing.
I suppose it's like grounding, isn't it?
It
They're
is
always talking.
grounding, yeah.
Hugely so. And again, shoes. I'm just going to tap into shoes while you're talking about grounding. This is something I don't do enough of, and I really should. But, taking your shoes and socks off, and whether you're walking on bare earth, soil, grass, in a woodland on the rich humus, or out on the shoreline, with the sand between your toes and in the rock pools, we're then sharing our chemicals and our energetic frequencies and vibrations with the natural frequencies of the earth. This is why lightning strikes the earth. It kind of feeds the frequency into the earth itself, and I think then other organisms distribute and permeate that energy out. Again, it's just part of the very natural system of this. Again, because it's all connected.
Absolutely. And it's like science is catching up with what we've deeply known ourselves throughout the centuries, isn't it? And,
massively so, yeah.
But, and I know myself, if you're trying to set up like a prayer space, something like that, the minute the children take their shoes off, there's something about that. Suddenly you feel everything changing. And they become very quiet, and the space becomes really sacred, and it's just a lovely space, and there is something like, we know there's sacred, and I think, we're born with it, so I think it's kind of remembering all of that, and I think taking the shoes off,
That
something
feels like
simple, really.
They
helps.
unknowingly hold space for each other in that moment, don't they? Which is
Yeah.
really special and something that we don't always do to each other. And even children have that, not even children, children do have that natural capacity to do it. So.
They do, that's it. And recognising that sacredness in each other as well, which is a beautiful thing. Yeah,
It is a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Obviously, if something's sacred, then people want to take care of it and look after it a bit more. And I think this is something that we've forgotten, again, in this world, because we're all so busy, our lives are so full of stuff that we need to do, that we forget that if we take care of something, it sort of reciprocates that and starts to take care of us as well.
Absolutely,
Through those natural processes. And, maybe if we were to treat nature as we would do our own children, that actually nature is an extended family member. Who
It is
would want
Mother
to go out
Nature,
and,
isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, this is the thing, isn't it? Who would want to go and harm a family member? I mean, personally, I don't see why anyone would want to go and harm anybody. I think we just do that by default sometimes with our stresses and, offloading stuff. But maybe if we treat nature much more as that sacred entity, something to nurture, to hug and to hold and to have. I recall working in London with a group of I suppose home-educated kids down there with a really lovely organisation, and we used to head off out into the busy parks in urban London. It was such a sanctuary, Again, if you sort of really just stood back and listened quietly, yes, you could hear the hum of the traffic, but when we were in and around nature, I mean, the kids, they were all over the place. They were noticing the butterflies and the bees, and they were interacting with each other. We used to have this lovely session around this one particular tree. That's when I was kind of getting the kids to join hands, or even individually, go up to the tree and just hug the tree. Go and tell it a fear or a woe if you want to do, and they loved it. And even the staff loved it as well. They really got into it as well. My dad also on my course, he's like stroking mushrooms and trees. I'm like, it's perfectly fine to do that here, honestly. In fact, I promote it.
You're in good company, it's fine. Oh, I love that. Yeah, that said, there is something about the, if we do recognise that everything is sacred, then it needs rights too. And actually, if we would recognise it as it, we will protect it. And I think we saw that, didn't we? You know, with the tree at Sycamore Gap, how outraged we all felt, and we felt that again, that link to that deep connection. Like, what do they call it? There's that fancy word, solastalgia, I think, isn't it? Where I know, I excelled myself today.
Pretty fabulous word.
It's like nostalgia, but for the natural world. So you feel like you've lost something that you've deeply known and cared about. And that was it with the Sycamore Gap tree, wasn't it? Everybody was just like, what?
I have a word.
Outraged.
We had a tree in our back garden in Hastings, and it was this beautiful horse chestnut tree. And I think and somebody cut it down, and I was devastated. And I was on a meditation course last year, sobbing about mourning the loss of this tree, and it never. I was really cross at the time.
Yeah.
But what was it called that I was experiencing?
Solastalgia.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
Oh, my
check
goodness.
that out now.
Yeah.
It is, and that's just an indication that actually we do deeply know these things.
Yeah.
But we need to protect them. I was just reading actually last night a river, and it's funnily enough, it's the Ouse, but in Sussex, has become the first in England to be granted rights after councillors approved a charter to protect a cherished waterway in Sussex.
Oh my goodness.
Wonderful.
So it needs to be free of pollution, to have native biodiversity, and comes in the middle of the pollution crisis, obviously. Yeah. So, well, that's it. You know, if you go, it's got rights and it's a living, breathing thing. Like, how can you dump all that rubbish in it?
It's insane to think that we have to start thinking that way. Yeah. In Maori culture, that all these things are sacred, and it's outrage that people don't think that way. Yeah. How can you not think that the water should be clean and have the same rights as everything? You know, I know that's not just in Maori culture, but it seems insane that we have to do this.
I think we've become so distanced and disconnected from it psychologically, haven't we? That it's that throwaway society thing. We make it, we use it, we chuck it away, and
we flush it down the loo.
Flush it down the loo.
Out of sight, out of mind.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Whereas
somebody else's problem.
I sometimes think, actually, if there wasn't a rubbish collection, we had to deal with all our rubbish ourselves, that I think we'd probably soon figure it out and go, okay, we need to use the rubbish from that to use that. And, I think we'd probably soon figure it out. But, and it just seems we just need to really just reconnect. And when we start caring about nature, then we'll start acting on it. That's the thing. And actually, like I said about the Sycamore Gap tree, we do care. Actually, we do recognise that we need it, and it's about remembering. I think that's Do you
think that the term, in our modern day society, that the terms such as spirituality or recognising the sacred should become quite loaded with like cliche? You look at let's say the 60s generation, fueled by whatever it was. You look at the base ideological principles behind that of like love and togetherness and unity, and how that's been derided and mocked and ridiculed and
absolutely.
in films, on comedy shows. And we might do the same. I thought, hey man,
But if you think of human history, that is what it was. It was the community looking after each other, and we've now sort of become so independent and wanting to be our own thing that we've forgotten this, I think.
Because we can celebrate the individual. Again, it's that thing, we all bring something to the table, but actually collectively and together, it's that typical, is it the Bruce Lee with the stick, and it's like one stick like easily broken, and then you break that stick down into 6 pieces and hold and try and break them, and it's like really solid.
Absolutely.
I was at a conference last year, Communicate conference, and it was finished. The closing speech was by a scientist, and he said, it was really, you'll be happy about this. He said, we need to start going back to how we feel in nature and stop. The measurements have been done. We know what we need to do. Let's start talking about how we feel, and and words such as that, emotive words. So that was really refreshing.
That indigenous, we're often citing out, we're often looking back in time at the indigenous and the wisdom. You go into certain bookshelves out there and you've got this native indigenous wisdom, and that we, even scientists and even the academics as well, will acknowledge this, that they had something really special. And again, we almost seem to struggle, don't we, to I suppose, adopt that within ourselves, that actually we are indigenous. You know, the ancient culture in the UK, you often see a lot of documentaries covering, let's say, South Africa, South America, North America, as the Aboriginal Australians. I do believe that prior to the Romans coming over, that's how we were. I think we were a very shamanic sort of culture. I think we had lots of ritual, wonder and amazement at the world. But again, at that time, if you wanted to drink a water, you got it from the stream.
Yeah.
You never weed in the stream. You never pooed anywhere near that stream. You defecated way away. Water is sacred. Water is life. But again, we were living in amongst the, I suppose, the savannas and the little grasslands that we had in the UK. I know a lot of people will associate savannas there with Africa, but it's not. We had a savanna territory in and around the UK landscape. It wasn't just wooded from top to bottom. Science is now, indicating and pointing towards that through fossil records and carbon records. But we lived in the woods. We lived by the sea. We had migratory routes and and we had, wild fish and wild meats and these plants and nuts and seeds. And I think we were doing little bits of gardening as we went around. It was almost like guerrilla gardening, making little pathways and, trimming things down because actually you'll get a better nut yield. Yeah. But we were living in and amongst nature, so we were deeply, deeply connected with it. And, especially I think if we look at more modern history in let's say the Americas per se, and the colonization of the Americas. In fact, I'm gonna skip to Avatar.
It's a big jump.
It's a huge jump, and it's like an interdimensional leap here to another paradigm and realm. But I forget the name of the race of the tall blue alien species at that. But that tree,
the Na'vi.
The Na'vi, the Na'vi, and that connection with that sacred tree, and in come the gung ho military, space military, and let's destroy it, let's kill their cultural symbol, their main cultural. That would be like burning a church down or burning a mosque down. It would absolutely incite people, and they show you that in the film, and they were deeply connected. I mean, I've got dreadlocks, so I've not actually wrapped my dreadlocks around trees and tried that. I should probably try that. But I think it's again, we're being shown that, aren't we, in these films, that this deep connection, this sorrow, this like having a digit removed or maybe your arm when your favourite tree is removed from the landscape because people are not aware of the intrinsic value. And I don't mean that in an economic term. I just mean an intrinsic value in mental health, spirituality, emotion, balancing, connection, friendship that you've had with that tree. I've just come back from being up in Northumberland, and there's a beautiful strip, probably about 50 metres, probably about 15, 20 sea bucks on trees. And every 2 or 3 years for the past, 8 years, I've been going up there and doing some gentle trimming of the berry-laden branches, only taking a certain amount of what I require, leave some there for nature. But the leaves are beautiful, the bushes are beautiful, the birds love to be in there, the insects love to be in there, little ruminating creatures like hedgehogs and other mammals, or weaving in and out of the trees. And I was up there with a friend, and we were just driving down the lane to go to the beach, and something was missing. My brain and my eyes, like, something's missing, and somebody's recently been in and chopped down every single tree, and I'm not going to exaggerate. I reeled. I'm going to do it on the if you don't mind me, on the microphone. I literally just went, and my friend went, what? And I went, oh my God, the trees have gone. Yeah. And I was saying to her, it's like it is like having my hand removed. Yeah. Something's now missing that I was connected to, that provided me with food, with medicine, but also kind of provided me with that offloading. Just that lovely, gentle connection, working through issues in my mind, but also planning dishes and the amazement of those berries and and all the other connections with it. So
that makes no sense at all, does it?
It's now a manicured field, and they've put a nice little bench in there, and it's a private field, so it's for whoever owns that field to sit there with their friends if they want to do. And the outer fringes of the wall where it would lead to the little footpath in the road that we were driving down, lots of beautiful sweet cicely, cow parsley, dandelions, daisies, and they've dug it all out. And I'm just like, wow. And again, but it's this because of our disconnect with nature, we don't see it as food. We don't see a value of it as food. And even outside of food, we don't necessarily see it as a benefit of part of nature, for the insects, for the mammals, for the other creatures, but also for us as humans. It's like, no, you've got a supermarket. And it's like, go to the supermarket.
Yeah, that's it. It's so hard, isn't it?
And it isn't, and when this isn't about saying we need to revert back to anything. This is saying respect what we have, love what we have, feel connected to what we have, and appreciate what we have and what we're connected to.
And especially in this day and age, it really felt like it just flies in the face of common sense. We're being told all the time about carbon footprints and our impact upon the world and how we need to read green and we need to look after it, and yet you then find these incidences where that just is complete opposite. Which really...
But I think sometimes it's not necessarily that people don't care about these things, it's that they don't know.
This is the thing, they don't know what those berries are for.
No.
The people who own that land, and same with the sweet cicely, it's just a green plant.
And in some regards we're quite stuck in Victorian way of thinking about nature, that it has to be neat and tidy and everything has a place, where we need to get a little bit comfortable with a bit of mess, because we all can agree that life is generally a bit messy at some times, so it's only fair that nature can be as well.
That's the thing, there's beauty. What you described was beautiful. I know you said that before when people have been on and described where they live in nature, and it's beautiful. And that Victorian mowed lawn, we need to move on.
Where's the biodiversity in that? Where's the community of other creatures, isn't it, as well, non-human creatures? Now, for our community garden, one of the things that we really, really want to encourage, and we talk about our non-human community, so it's like, yes, we're there for the community itself to grow things and to reconnect with nature, but we talk about our non-human community as well. So that bit is just completely left over winter, so that everything that needs to burrow can burrow and be protected can be protected, and it's really, really important. And I think it's about creating that awareness as well, isn't it? And just get it into language so it becomes very natural. And we talk about this, of course we do, and it's a journey.
And obviously for you guys, you've been on this journey for a long time. Some people haven't even thought about it yet or are wanting to start. I mean, have you got any suggestions for how people can actually take those first steps?
That's a good question, isn't it? I don't know. I mean, so it's easier said than done, but just get out into nature. But a lot of people do. This is leisure time from a working week. Like, a lot of people want to go and hit the parks, don't they? Whether they want to go cycling there or jogging and running through there. They're still getting that connection. I think people with families are definitely taking their kids out to these to the local parks. I think that's kind of where it. I think that's where it starts. I think books can help as well, but I think it's again slowing down. Maybe not taking all out with you. Leave your phone at home, maybe as well. Like, you don't have to document it. I know. He says with his phone somewhere, always taking pictures of plants. Just switching that off. Really, I think leave your tech at home for a wee while. It's not actually going to do you any harm. And I can say that coming from a generation I was born in 1976. I'm sure you were all of us, maybe of a similar age. That we had those little ring phones where you put your full circular thing round.
I had to try one of those as well.
So it's we're just constantly connected, aren't we, through technology, through that modern world and that modern lens. And maybe what we need to do is just leave some of that behind and get out into nature.
But also something you said earlier, that what should I be doing? And if we stop just for a few hours to think of what I should do and think about what I want to do. When I'm
absolutely.
But there is something about should. Yes. That when you lose that should, get out of your head and you start to be, then that's.
I definitely remember, even up to about 10 years ago, shoulding myself to death. I'm like, I should be a more worthy Christian. I should be more like this. I should be more like. Actually, if you just be, then actually you're halfway there. So I think, getting out in nature, but then really being open and really connecting and looking closely. And, I remember a moment up in Scotland. I was with my kids quite young at the time. And I remember looking down this loch and there was just this huge sense of or, you know, and that connection to God, to cosmos, whatever you want to call it, and then look down and a tiny detail on the blades of grass and everything. It was just a really deep spiritual connection. So it's about just being open to those things and finding ways to connect. And it might be just getting your hands in some soil as well. I love a bit of growing. And so I've just been planting loads of seeds, and I get very excited when the shoot starts coming. It's like hope in little seed form. I love it. So, you know, it's finding those simple ways to do it.
I feel finely tuned when I walk through a woodland, like especially when it's been raining or something. I feel like if I looked through, I could see, or I know every leaf in that on the floor. I can see everything in vivid colour. It feels like you can hit. Yeah, everything is finely tuned. My hearing, my smell, my vision, and I wouldn't class myself as, I don't know.
It's a spiritual experience, isn't it?
Exactly.
You know, whatever you want to cloak it in, you know, it's a spiritual experience, and you feel connected. It's beautiful. Yeah.
So we're very, very sort of physical, aren't we? Very material, practical in that sense, and I think there's different states of being and how we can view the body. So, you know, I have my physical body, and then I have my energetic body, and actually layers of energetic bodies, but it all makes up the one, you know, and that connects. But I think because we can't see that, we can't see the energy, we can't see the life force flowing through plants. We see life, we see the flowers forming, but we don't apply that maybe that significance and understanding. Maybe that's just where we're at in our culture, and actually maybe partly what this podcast's about is actually raising that awareness, and maybe it'll spark some, I don't know, seeds of thought in people's minds. But we're not just physical beings. Yeah. We are also spiritual beings. So that aspect of walking through woods, I think even quantum science is pointing in this direction. That so there's a certain book that's here, and I'm along my journey, spending time in nature. I felt myself being informed, and I couldn't quite put my finger on what was informing me. I was like, well, is it my thoughts that are informing me? But it didn't feel like my thoughts. I felt something else was informing me, touching me, feeding me. And I started to develop these sort of theories, and sometimes a sense of just knowing, intuitive, psychic knowing. It was like, knowing. I just know, but I've got to be really careful to say that. You know, it's like it's a really bold statement. But also I like thinking like, you know, do I actually really know everything? It's cool not to know everything. And I read a particular book by a chap called Stephen Harrod Booner, and the way that he was talking about the connection of humans with plants and what we've forgotten, and maybe how we can help ourselves to remember. And he was chatting about how the connection between us and plants isn't necessarily a spoken one like what we're doing now, that actually it's an energetic, it's actually a psychic link, and you can't see it. You can't see the plant's lips moving per se, so they have to communicate in another way, and they have energy resonance fields. And I read that in the book, and it was like, wow, like I'd kind of deduced that in my own way. And now that I've read it in this book, I'm not saying it's perfectly gospel, but I think it is. I'm going to say it is.
It's just like that science is catching up, isn't it? These energy fields. And actually, that explains what actually we intuitively knew. Yeah, absolutely. So I know Joanna Macy and I think it's Chris Johnston. I think I wrote it down here. Chris Johnston, that's right. They talked about the active hope, and I'd definitely recommend that book as well. But it talks about those three stories, narratives that we tell ourselves, and one of them is the first one is the business as usual. So that is the current cultural, economic way of doing things, very extractive, very selfish and individualistic and everything. And then it talks about the great unraveling, which we're kind of seeing now, really, aren't we, in a big way. But then also talks about the great awakening as well, which really gives me hope. And they draw on all sorts of different wisdoms and things like that, which I think is so important. We just need all the wisdom we can get right now, let's face it. So, from all faiths and all backgrounds and all spiritualities, let's just draw on all the wisdom. But that was beautiful. It was just about people going, there's got to be a better way. We're missing something. And it's getting back to that, what we deeply, we just know in our bones, and it's not as you say, it's not like, oh, I know everything. It's nothing to it. It's that deep knowing that we all have, and it's tapping into that, I think. Yeah. And then once we've done that, we can then build on it and go, okay, different way, perhaps a bit more of a well-being way to live in the world, rather than chasing GDP goals and things like that, which doesn't mean anything to anybody and nobody's better off, well, except a few. Actually look at well-being. Where how can we all be well off in the terms of spiritually and connected and that kind of well-being?
Yeah. They say the longest journey is from your head back to your heart.
Yeah,
don't they?
absolutely.
That's a good saying.
Yeah, and that's feels like when you're talking that is where we need to get back to, and remember that we do love each other. Yeah. Whether it's a good thing to love each other, and that doesn't have to be a frightening thing. No. It doesn't mean it's not a vulnerable thing. No. It's a beautiful thing.
And we did see it more in the pandemic, which I think is why that awakening has become especially more prevalent since the pandemic, because we've gone, oh, actually, we're not all about individuals. We need each other, don't we? Yeah. We are social species. We need each other. We need to reconnect to nature, to each other, and to something bigger than ourselves. So I think that's
I find it so exciting. Yeah. And that sort of knowledge, that silent knowledge, that knowing that we have, as soon as we sort of slow down and get back into ourselves and it's not a big secret, it's not a big mystery, it's there and it's in all of us, and it doesn't have to be complicated.
No, absolutely not. No.
I think we make things complicated. I think we can very much create a construct of complexity, and actually when you really break it down to its basic substrate, fundamental parts, actually it's really simple. And again, maybe that's just in the mind, that you can make things complicated, or actually you can make things really simple if you want to. And again, hitting that flow, abundance is all around us, whether that's food abundance, whether that's love, community, it's there. And again, it's that get out of your head.
Absolutely.
And just tapping into, you've mentioned this a couple of times, I think one of the most positive aspects for some that I saw in the lockdowns in 2020 was a recognition by so many more people of an awareness of all the birds, all the bees,
absolutely.
And all this so much more nature. Personally, from my perspective, there was no more nature than there generally is. It's just that you're all now not sat in your cars, listening with your radios, looking through a screen.
They haven't got headphones on, hiding in the trees. All the birds and the butterflies with us. Sorry.
No, it's fine. No, you've now got the opportunity and the chance to sit still. Observe, open your ears and take note of what's going on around you. A lot of people opted to go into the parks. And I think it's just wonderful, that kind of rich tapestry of nature and the myriad wonders of it all. People tapped into it and actually recognised it. I wonder if you were to chat to a lot of people now, they'd probably go for a lockdown. Like fully paid lockdown for another year. But you can actually travel and be free to do what you want to do. Yeah. Cool. And maybe that's what we need. Maybe we do need to just allow people to be, there's enough money out there, I think, to pay people for a year, almost like a sabbatical, like a gap year or whatever, just to spend that time with your children or with your loved ones, with your friends in nature. Obviously, got to look at the impacts of everybody going to the 10 million people visit Scarborough on the same day, so it's going to be cluttered. But there's plenty of spaces for people to get out there, or maybe even stagger it. To some extent. Anyway, if you vote me for PM, I will bring that to play.
You've got my vote, absolutely. But it's quite funny that I remember talking to myself and thinking, for all that lockdown was horrible in so many different ways, one of the beautiful things about that people did have the opportunity to read more and connect more and all those sort of different things. And I remember thinking to myself, wouldn't it be lovely if we could do that on a more regular basis, but deliberately disconnect from phones and reconnect to other things. And I went, oh, hang on, you mean like Sabbath? The very traditional notion of Sabbath, and whatever that means for anybody, but that being rather than doing, and like that regular. And of course now with a 24-hour society, it's like there's no deliberate putting down of things. So whatever your thoughts are religiously, you can take that notion and that practice of Sabbath and resting. It's so important to rest.
And I think our ancestors, as much as they had time to relax, were still very, very busy people. You know, there was always food to gather. You had to go and catch your food. You didn't have a local Aldi down the road. It was there's the river. That's Morrison's. that's Aldi, and you'd be fixing your coracles and making new paddles, and certain people go out on the fishing expeditions, and when they'd come back from the fishing expeditions, people still be making nets and hooks and what have we. And then they'd bring the fish back, and then they'd pass those fish over, and they'd probably take a little bit of time out, go and spend some time with their family. Other people would take over the fish prep. Same with the hunting. You'd be off for 3 or 4 days, and then maybe you'd come back with a couple of deer, and maybe beaver and bear was eaten at that point of time when we had them in the UK. But everything was shared amongst the community, the gathering of plants, the tending of the fire, the gathering of the wood. We weren't just sat on our backsides sort of, I don't know, kind of hugging and at each other. I think we were still very, very busy, and I think our lives were much more physical.
Yes.
I think physicality is a good thing. I suppose with the foraging, I do a lot of walking, but I don't do so much in the way of heavy lifting like I have done with other jobs since leaving school, which put me in a really good kind of, I suppose, in a really good state of mind, but also in a good physical state as well. I felt strong. I felt healthy. It was hard work, but it was productive and it was positive. And again, we've got a lot of sedentary activity these days, haven't we? I have worked in a call centre. I think I did it for a day and a half, and had to get out there. Well, we won't go into that one, but yeah.
I think it did give you, I always come back to the 3 things that people need are meaning, purpose and belonging. And I think you probably had those in nature, whereas now you're just going to keep the churn going. It's the rat race thing, isn't it? And it's like people are just wanting to step back from that, because actually what's the purpose in doing those I won't say the full word, but nonsense jobs, isn't it? Where you go, what's that all about? Why are we doing that? Whereas actually what you used to have to do was very much full of purpose, and you were feeding people, you were doing whatever, and we've moved away from that quite a lot, haven't we? And you just think, why are we doing all that?
I was very lucky to go and stay somewhere where that's what I had to do. It was completely off grid, and it was in a roundhouse, and there was a lot of crouching, a lot of firewood gathering. I was on my own, so I had to be self-reliant. I got my water from the stream. I got there was a community. We'd come together to grow the food and gather the food, and I was so fit. I felt strong, and I had to rely on myself. I didn't use my phone for any maps. I went walking. I'd find my way. It was really empowering. It was amazing, and it fulfilled those 3 criteria fully. But how often do we get the chance to do that? There must be a way to do it. There must be a way to do it in your everyday life, mustn't there? Just go for a walk without your phone one day, or I don't know.
Design that into our lives now,
maybe.
For everything.
Oh God, it was like a reset. It was amazing, amazing. Yeah.
Not going to scoff at foraging, but the busier that I became as a foraging tutor and the or sort of other threads attached to cooking, what I found was that actually I was spending less leisure time in nature. There was kind of I've got to go and pick this because I need to put my lactose ferments on, or I need to make a cake this weekend, and I need to get some other bits and pieces in because they're not going to be at the site that I'm teaching at. And actually the processing of that, which obviously the vast majority of that is done indoors, maybe a quarter of my time is spent in nature compared to my very, very early days when I was, before I'd even sort of conceived the notion that I'd become a foraging tutor. It just happened. That was just spending time in nature, learning about the plants and having a lot of leisure time. I was working 2 days a week as well. And then the busier I became, the more time I found myself having to put into being indoors to process those things that I need. So again, these kind of knock-on effects, and I suppose it's that balance. And actually 2020 for me, even as much as traumatic and strange as I found it, actually forced me to slow down as well, because a lot of people wouldn't come on courses. People were really terrified of just being being near people. There's a lot of confusion and fear going around. So it gave me the opportunity to actually just take a step backwards and not kind of chase work constantly and be absolutely at it for tremendous amount of hours per week from spring right through probably until early winter, sort of December and kind of like maybe December and January. We're just like, and I get to relax at those times. But actually throughout 2020 and actually since then, I've actually offloaded a lot of that responsibility that I've not been chasing work quite so much.
Even for people that are really busy, there are those small pockets of nature that they can get to in their daily life, especially here in York. There's
there's lots, isn't there?
Yeah,
I mean,
there's
I
a
sent Nick. It's brilliant as well. Yeah.
There's loads, yeah. I want to know what's in your boxes. You'll have to describe them in case people are listening only.
Oh, well, this little tasters. So this is a little seaweed. It's one of my favourite seaweeds. So this is Osmundia pinnitifada, also known as the truffle of the sea. So I mean, I'm going to have a nibble and then pass it around, really.
Oh, right,
so we need to know what it looks like in case people can't listening rather than...
Yeah, it look like
a tree.
Leaves,
if you
turn it
turn it round and stand up, it looks like a tree.
And
it does. It looks like a little tree.
And what's it called?
Pepperduls. So the common name is pepperduls, and another common name is truffle of the sea.
Truffle of the sea. And is it a kind of a mushroom or a seaweed?
No, it's a seaweed. Yes, marine algae. Yeah.
Okay.
That's lovely.
Okay.
Lovely, isn't it? Yeah, it is. I love it. It's one of my favourite. I think it's got such a... we need you caught on camera there in your face.
That is
wow.
like a truffle. That's really... It smells very seaweedy.
It does.
Subtly seaweedy. More grassy seaweedy.
Nice. Oh, you're great at
And
this, you. Go on.
And then when you bite into it, it is like almost mushroomy texture. It's really strange. But then
So if you graze it straight off the rocks or pick it straight from the rock, sort of like break it free from its holdfast, always leave the holdfast intact, it's much crunchier. So this was picked a couple of days ago, so it's just starting to just go a little bit softer, so to speak, on the texture, but it's just wonderful, and it's so full on, you know.
So how would you cook with that then? What would you typically put it in?
To be honest with you, I don't. I generally use it raw, to be honest with you.
Just have a snack?
Yeah, and then sometimes I'll dry it and mix it with salts. And again, it has that sort of peppery, a little spicy, peppery aftertaste. So again, you know, that would be going on to, say, some poached eggs or something like that. You can mix it into butter, you know, pepperduls butter, and spread on your toast.
Pepperduls, it's a lovely name, isn't it?
It's beautiful, yeah. Feel free to have some more, honestly. I've got ample of it. And then this one, this is your pudding. This is your dessert. So this is, kind of a concoction that came together about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. So I'd made a bee pollen garum. So I'd mixed bee pollen with water, a specific quantity of salt, and koji rice. So koji rice is a substrate of rice that's been inoculated with Aspergillus oryzae, which is a little fungus, and it just enhances flavour, and it's also really, really good for fermenting. Basically, this is how you get your misos, basically, or your tempeh or your natto. And it was a really unique taste to me. The first time I tasted my bee pollen garum, I was just like, what on earth? I've never tasted anything like it. And every inquisitive sort of taste every now and then. And eventually I tasted it, and I suddenly one evening it just kind of went, it tastes like it's a bit like halva. So I tried to make a halva with it. But it went more like a nougat, so I call it bee pollen garum halva nougat. Don't try saying it if you've had a couple of cocktail drinks. It just doesn't work.
That's a bit of a challenge.
But it's so it's got hazelnuts in there as well, toasted hazelnuts. I've got some orange zest in there and some orange juice. This one's made with honey, bee pollen garum, and some sesame paste as well. So I'll pass that around.
Just poke your
just
in a bit.
stick your fingers in and grab a load.
It's stickier than you thought it was going to be.
Quite fudgy, toffee.
Is it halva-like? That's what it is. Well, I'm looking forward to this.
Oh, cool.
So it's brown. I'm just going to hang on.
Think carefully, Beki, before you describe
Got
it.
the orange zest now.
That's nice.
Right.
That's going to take me a minute, I think. I really like it.
Feel free to grab another fingerful, seriously.
Lovely. Yeah, it's like anything else. It's lovely.
I'm just trying to think because there's a lot going. I can taste the sesame.
Slightly caramelly.
Yeah. It's really good. That is really good. It is weird. It's a slow burner, isn't it? Like you have it and then it's a bit confusing and then it's like, that's really comforting. That's really nice. And I don't know how to describe it. It is a bit umami, isn't it? Wow.
Yeah.
And that is all from foraged food.
Yeah, I mean, apart from the rice and the
Of
rice
course you said,
substrate and the sesame paste. But the honey, so the honey's really lovely. It comes from a friend of mine up in Scotland, and they own, I think it's like 60 or 80 acres of really ancient crofting land. So there's never been any sprays on there, and they actually keep native black bees, and they're free to forage on the land, and they literally gather their nectar and their pollens from all the wild plants that the foragers would. She actually gave me a sample up at the Scottish Wild Food Festival about 4 years ago, and I was just smitten. Absolutely, I was just like, that is just outrageously beautiful honey. Like, can you send me kilos of it? Like, I want that honey. I love it.
That honey comes through later on, doesn't it? It's still there on my tongue now. Can you? Yeah,
that's
really,
it.
really
got
nice.
that afterwards.
Yeah,
lovely.
that's amazing. Wow, thank you.
Thank you.
Lovely.
I have to write me some taste reviews.
Food. I love food. I could eat my way. I eat my way. I love food.
Oh,
I do.
absolutely.
I'm not a great cook, but I love food. Yeah.
I think since we're doing show and tell, I think both of you have got some books that you want to mention.
Yes, I do. Think, have I got it down here? Let me just dig it out. So this one taps into that deep knowing that we've been talking about, but very much says, the author very much says that it can be accessed by people of any traditions, any faiths, or just curious, so it's really good. It's called Sacred Earth, Sacred Soul, a Celtic guide to listening to our souls and saving the world. It's John Philip Newell. If I read a little bit about the blurb, will that be all right? That'll kind of give people a bit of a... I thought, that's just summarised it all up. So the hidden traditions of Celtic spirituality can help us renew our faith, heal the earth, overcome our conflicts and reconnect with ourselves. So a lot of what we've been talking about. Leading spiritual teacher John Philip Newell reveals how Celtic Christianity can help us rediscover the natural rhythms of life and deepen our spiritual connection with God, each other and the earth. Human beings are inherently spiritual creatures who intuitively see the sacred in nature and within one another. But our cultures and at times even our faith traditions have led us to forget these truths. Newell opens our eyes to what we have known all along, providing a new spiritual foundation by which we can find encouragement, guidance and hope for creating a better world. I'll have me some of that.
Yeah, that sounds really
Can I have a nice
nice.
portion of that as well, please?
I'll lend you a bucket. Yeah, it's lovely. Yeah. But it's lovely. It's one of those books that you can read a chapter, put down again, read it and come back later. But in the introduction, I was almost in tears. It was just some beautiful moments in there. And I think one of his previous book, a woman comes back to him at a reading and she just says, I've got to show you what I put in this book. And it just went, I knew it. It is back to that deep knowing stuff. So I love that.
And what about you, Craig? What have you got?
So I brought a few different books in. I'm going to start with this one. So I was part of the collaboration for this book. This is called Ancestors Awakening. And it's very much a book about ancient ancestry in the UK in particular, sort of Neolithic, a bit of Mesolithic. And there's various people who were involved in the book. So Peter Jankowski, my friend, he's how do you describe Peter? Wow, he's like one of the wise elders to be, in my personal feelings towards him. He's a really, really lovely guy, very open with his thoughts, very articulate, very, very eloquent, very, very, very artistic. And myself, I provided 3 articles for this. My friend Edwina, she's a medical herbalist and a forager. She wrote from her perspectives. Then we had a lady who was a poet who wrote some poetry for it. And then we had an archaeologist called John, kind of one of the big archaeology guys in the UK. And he added to this book as well. So it's very much about imagination, I suppose psychic intuition, and just the spirituality, really, reconnecting with the land, reconnecting with the plants, reconnecting through archaeology, experiential insights and those kinds of lenses, really. So it's quite diverse, but very sort of touching on all the subject matter, really, that we're
It's a beautiful cover
today.
as well.
It is, yeah. Peter designed it, so
beautiful. Yeah.
look at that there. And then, just other books that kind of fit in with the theme. So I brought in this book, which is Sacred Plant Medicine by Stephen Harrod Booner. and it's about the wisdom in Native American herbalism. But again, this is about the language between humans and plants, so that psychic, energetic link, and very much tapping into, I suppose, the North American indigenous cultures and their perspectives and connection with plants in much more of a spiritual, sacred, like it's a family member, that kind of aspect. And then there is a really lovely book written by my friend Monica Wilde. So Monica did something really quite fascinating I think it was in 2020 or 2021. She suddenly decided that she wanted to just eat wild food for a year. So she stopped everything, dairy, coffee, tea, going to shops, and she solely sourced food from the wild. She had some neighbours bringing food for her as well, so wild game. And the book basically documents her year of eating wild food, and it is spiritual, but it's not just a spiritual book. It's just a wonderful book, and I think it will inspire people to go out and reconnect with nature, especially from a foraging angle. And it goes into all sustainability and mindfulness. So it's called The Wilderness Cure, and it's by Mo Wilde. And then, I suppose, on the spiritual tip of things, if people into like spirit and shamanism and really connecting with the universal powers, forces, Gaia, the great spirit of all things, is a book called The Way of the Shaman by Michael Harner. It's another book that people can delve into, and again, you can feel again with a foraging pathway that I've taken, that I've very much tapped into the way of sort of the medicine people of the tribe from the indigenous times many years ago, without actually realising that. So I think it works really well with it. And this is another book this is my friend Andy Hamilton. He's just released this book called New Wild Order. I've just finished reading it, and it's just really, really lovely. It's very revealing and truthful. I think it's part of Andy's healing journey in his own right, and he's really put himself in those pages in a way that's very, very exposing for him. So I think it's a really brave book, but I think a lot of people will resonate with the content in there, and then he brings in the beautiful aspects of foraging and consciousness and plants and mushrooms, and just weaves it together really quite beautifully. So you can kind of use it as a little help manual for guidance and along the way. So, but there's so many books. Could have brought a library.
I know. This is.
We can.
Yeah, we'll add links into the description.
Yeah. I feel like I've got 3 words that I'm going to take away from today, and that's beauty, surrender, and love. That's what I'm going to take, and as my connection to nature.
That's what it comes down to, I think, really, isn't it?
Yeah. So thank you so much.
Yes, thank you both.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
it really has.
And even sat here, I'm feeling slightly more connected to everything.
There were moments where it was completely, I don't know how to, completely grounding, connected. It was beautiful, really beautiful.